this is the first time we heard from the New York Times CEO since President Trump just this past weekend really turned up the critical rhetoric against the New York Times, not only calling them failing this time, but also accusing them of committing a virtual act of treason on a story that they did. This all has to do with the story that the New York Times published over the weekend that sort of details the U.S. increasing digital incursions against the Russian power grid in retaliation for Russian election interference and Moscow's cyber warfare. New York Times CEO Mark Thompson just told me he stands by the story. They talked to administration officials within national security, and that what the president's doing is dangerous. Listen.
In the end, calling journalists traitors or calling them enemies of the people is inevitably going to increase the risk of violence and hostility towards journalists, and it's irresponsible, and he shouldn't do it.
He said he wasn't taking the treason charge seriously because they have the sources to confirm the story. Also, when it comes to criticism of the New York Times, Thompson said, look, the president is fair to be critical. It's fair for him not to like a story, but to isolate journalists with this kind of language, and I'll just read you the direct quote because it was pretty powerful in the room, he said, is frankly hostile, stupid, but also dangerous thing to do. Morgan and Carl.
Hey, Sarah, sounds like he also addressed just the model, the business model of journalism, the degree we need a physical paper like I've got on my desk here. As you know, the data they need to collect from readers and the data that they use.
Yes, it was fascinating. So Mark Thompson actually came into the New York Times at the end of 2012. The stock price was about $8 per share. There was talk about the death of newspapers and of the New York Times. Well, now that stock is in the 30s. It is nearly quadrupled since he's taken over. And he detailed the strategy of how they really became a digital-first organization, which sounds like something, but he said he isolated the print folks into sort of a smaller office. And he said, we knew how to do print. We knew how to do the physical paper. What we needed to build was an actual digital organization. It started with going on the paywall and then leveraging the data they got from customers into those subscriptions, building out all sorts of digital businesses, like, of course, the podcasts and the apps like the crossword puzzle. So it was really interesting to hear a media leader, he said, which you don't see too much, focus the organization culturally to really implement that strategic transformation into digital first. And it's certainly worked for them. Their business has never been better.